registered dietitian, founder of Integrative Weight and Wellness, and I specialize in metabolic health, fat loss, and wellness. And today I'm going to be teaching you about how to sit with your emotions and figure out what they mean. I recently had a situation happen where I was reminded of how important it is to be able to sit and work with and through your emotions. So I'm going to teach you how exactly to do that. I'm a master of emotions. I have felt them all and very deeply. And it has taken me a very long time to be able to build this skill. I used to hate the fact that I was so easily impacted by things and I felt emotions very, very deeply. I used to see it as a weakness, and that was really because I didn't know how to channel, how to interact, and how to actually feel and sit with those emotions in my body and kind of figure out what they mean and the purpose of them, the purpose behind them. And now I see it as one of my greatest strengths because it allows me to connect with people in ways and on levels that we often can't articulate. People often can't pinpoint what it is exactly that they like about me or why they feel connected to me. And, it's always interesting because overall, I'm a pretty average person, and I say that as a compliment. There's nothing wrong with being an average Joe around here. Society really fears being average, right? I had a professor in college once, and she really expanded my mind on this topic, where she was teaching a class and she was saying, I want to remind everybody that a C is average, a B is above average, and an A is excellent, right? We all remember being in class and striving for that A and feeling like a failure if we got a B. Like, oh my God, I got a B, I can't believe that's failing. I used to sit in that seat and say the same exact things. I'd say, that is failing. And we have all this, pressure on people of constantly wanting to be that A. We have to get an A, we have to get an A, we have to be great, we have to be excellent, we have to be above the norm. And where has that really gotten us as a society, honestly? Where has that constant strive for being perfect and being scared of, this average level of living where, there's nothing wrong with it, but where has that gotten us, right? Chronic disease, really? We're, as a society, the sickest we've ever been and the unhappiest we've ever been. That's a problem. And this is also one of the greatest skills that helps with fat loss specifically, or even managing your weight at any level at all. Because this was something that in my own journey made the greatest difference, because again, we can talk about protein, we can talk about carbs, we can talk about, structure of your eating plate, we can talk about all those things, and we will, of course, they're important, but until we're able to really sit with our emotions and learn how to do that as a skill, it's going to be an uphill battle the entire time. So that's really why I want to teach anybody who's interested in learning how to manage their weight and learning how to, or on some sort of healing and health journey. I really want to be able to help you with this skill because it has greatly improved my life like you wouldn't believe. So I'm going to take you through step by step exactly how I sit through my emotions, how I work through them, and how I kind of figure out what they mean and make connections with them so they help me in a positive way. So this is a more or less 4-step process. It's pretty in-depth. It's not something that you can necessarily do on the fly. It's something that you have to take your time and work through. But trust me when I tell you that it'll change your entire life, I'm not lying. So the first step is to sit with your emotions. Literally sit down on the floor in any comfortable position or on a chair, right? This is why I'm sitting in this video, because you have to physically actually sit down and slow down. You can't try to work through a specific emotion and go on and about your day like regular. You know, you have to really take the time and carve out that sacred space and actually have that physical routine of sitting and allowing the emotion to work through your body. So the first thing I want you to do is to sit down. Again, what I said, whether it's on a chair or whether it's sitting on the floor, you're gonna sit in a whatever position is comfortable for you, but that is, again, step number one. Okay, the second step is that you're going to locate and sense where this feeling or energy is kind of pointing within your body. So again, for the example of this situation that I was recently in, my reaction was didn't quite fit what I actually felt. You know, we've all been in that situation where my reaction was, you know, kind of this coming across where I was angry, I was yelling, I was, you know, defensive, I was saying things that I really didn't mean, and, you know, the other person was like, oh, so you're feeling this way, like you're feeling mad. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm feeling. How are you not understanding that, right? Because again, there was that disconnect between what I was, how I was behaving and what the emotion I was actually feeling. So I had to, again, take time to figure that out. So I was sat down, step number two, locate and sense. So I was like, okay, where is this coming from in my body? And so I was, you know, moving around, feeling my body, and I was feeling, or I got the sensation where I was feeling it around this area, where it really wasn't my gut. It was kind of right above my belly button and right below my chest. And I was like, okay, so in the energy alignments, like what energy is this coming from, right? And around this area, it's your solar plexus. So I was like, okay, solar plexus is really your fuel source, your kind of authenticity, your responsibility, your personal power, and your identity. So I'm, you know, so that got me thinking where I was like, okay, I'm having some type of struggle with this emotion, and it has to do with, you know, my personal power, my identity. And then it was like, and then, you know, again, the next part of this step is to sense. So it's like you want to locate where it is in your body and you want to sense, like, what does that necessarily feel like? And it doesn't always feel like something super obvious, like, you know, again, for example, I was feeling it in, you know, my solar plexus, and I was feeling it buzzing. It wasn't like beating like a drum, it wasn't loud. It was sort of just, you know, a light, and it wasn't like a, you know, vibration. It was kind of just like a buzz. Like if you could almost hear a buzz in your ear, it was just a little bit of like a buzzing sensation. And so, again, when we think about our chakras, they're either balanced or they're unbalanced. So they could either be blocked, where it's that more or less is kind of a sensation where you feel that you're not able to express and you feel kind of closed in. But this buzzing, you know, that is similarly related to something that's like, you know, I make that association of like it's overactive, right? It's buzzing. It's kind of like, you know, like alert, like it's something's going on, right? And what does an overactive solar plexus mean? It really means that I am in this space of judging. I'm in this space of ego. I'm in this space of kind of having a single narrow-mindedness about, you know, a topic. So then I'm like, okay, so now I can slowly start to see some connections to what's going on, right? So I had this reaction that was angry, and that was, you know, yelling, and that was, I was mad, but I was like, I don't even know what I'm mad at, and I know it's not the actual issue, so what is it, you know? And then, so now I'm thinking, and now I'm locating, and now I'm sensing. So it's like, I know that it has something to do with my personal power, my identity, and my authenticity is, you know, almost being threatened, right? Because when you think of something that's overactive, right? So if we're in this place of ego, if we're in this place of, you know, being critical and being judgmental and having a single-mindedness, what that means underneath is like you're being threatened. I feel like my personal power and my identity and my, fuel source and my confidence is being threatened. So I had to react, or I didn't have to, but I did, and like react in a certain way that was really in tune with like that overactive solar plexus where I was in my ego space. And the third step is to associate organ function. So this is a huge one. And this is really, really big when we talk about being connected to our body. So many times and so often there are a lot of people out there who really have no idea like what the inside of their body looks like, and they just go about their day and they're, have no idea like what type of organs, where are they located, what are they doing, what do they mean. And so like that's a huge piece of like being connected to our body is, again, you don't have to have a super scientific understanding, deep level, just kind of a baseline understanding of like what type of organs are there and what could they possibly, or what type of messages is that kind of sending to me. So around this area, what type of organs, sit there more or less, right? So we have the pancreas, we have our spleen, we have our liver, we have our gallbladder, again, around this area, more or less. And again, when we're thinking of what the functions of these organs are, we don't have to know the nitty gritty. It's just kind of general ideas of it. When we think about our pancreas, what does our pancreas do? It helps aid in digestion. It also sends messages, like it sends hormones, secretes hormones throughout the body. So it's essentially a messenger to the body. And our spleen, it really helps to protect and invade, certain bacteria, helps as white blood cells. So it's really sort of a protector type of organ. And then we have our liver, and our liver really filters and detoxes. So it helps to kind of get things moving, get things out, get sort of the more or less nasty, bad things in our body, filtering them, disposing of them, overturning them, making them, better, more or less. And then we have our gallbladder. And our gallbladder is a responder, right? So it also aids and helps, but it also, with digestion and with bile. But really what it's doing is it's responding to the presence of fat. So it is, think of it as like a responder type of organ. It gets the message and it responds out. So now at this point, I'm starting to make connections of what the situation is going on, whatever situation you're going through, whatever things that you're feeling, you want to start making connections. And again, I literally physically write all of this stuff down on a notebook piece of paper because it helps me sort of see and pick what types of messages. So again, for example, when I'm thinking of the location and the sensation, right? It's in that solar plexus area. So I know that I'm seeing, personal power, identity, it's overactive, that buzzing type of feeling. So I know that I'm being critical, I'm being judgmental, I'm, thinking of things in maybe a one-sided way, like that single-mindedness. I'm kind of coming from a space of ego. So it's like, what are those connections to what's occurring? Like, did my reaction, like, does this fit the picture of the situation? And when I think about it, like when I can see it written out, I'm like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It makes sense of why I reacted in that way because I can really see it out. I can see those connections, I can see that message. And then when I think about my organs, I think about, okay, what is my body trying to tell me, right? Like that's really what I like to think about when we're thinking of like, okay, what's the organ function connected to like the certain part of your body that you're feeling this in? Because that really kind of says, okay, like what is my body trying to tell me? It doesn't necessarily mean, again, it's not that your body is actually having a function related to what's going on. I mean, your body will process things and, symptoms of different, or your organs have different symptoms but that's kind of a different thing. I'm talking about more like in the spiritual energy type of space when we think about our organs, right? Our organs are part of our body and we're connected to that. So what type of message, where it's like, if I'm trying to get a message and something around here, what can I make those connections with? That's not actual physical symptoms, right? So we think about, again, overarching themes, right? We don't have to get the nitty gritty. It's really about general types of themes. And we think about our pancreas. Our pancreas is really a messenger. So now I'm starting to think like, okay, I think I'm getting some type of message, or something is trying to tell me something. And when I think of the spleen, right, it's a protector, as I said, when we think about white blood cells and invasion of bacteria. I'm getting some sort of message where, maybe there's a signal that I need to protect myself in a certain way. And then when we think about the liver, again, filter, detoxing, so there needs to be kind of an overturn, a change, or something needs to go from, waste to beneficial, or waste to out of the picture, so to speak. And then, again, like the gallbladder, as I said, and that's really it stores it stores bile, and it responds to, presence of fat. So it's really a responder. So it's like, I'm understanding the theme of kind of what's going on in that emotion. I kind of get why I reacted in that way. And now I'm in this place of like, okay, I'm understanding a little bit more clearer of what is actually going on, because again, I'm writing all of these things out and I'm seeing the patterns play out, where I'm seeing that really, okay, there's some type of message. There is, something about, I'm feeling that maybe my personal power, my personal boundary, was invaded in a certain way, and like I felt the need to protect myself. So it allows me to kind of see like what those feelings really are, and I kind of get the picture that like, okay, so what just happened was a personal boundary, a personal a boundary of like or of respect, of another person respecting me, another person, my expectations, and maybe my ego was getting in the way. But that's really what the overall theme that I came down to, where I was like, I really am not mad, I'm upset at the breach in personal boundaries. So now I need to either, detox that out of my life, or I need to, again, respond in a better way to better express what I was actually feeling. So now step 4 is to ask the universal questions, right? And so you can do this where you're just asking a question and you're, maybe journaling out kind of things that you're receiving. I like to use an oracle card deck, because again, it just gives me a little bit more guidance, because sometimes when we're in an emotional state or we're feeling those emotions deeply, it's helpful to get a little bit of guidance. But again, you have to think about it where it's like, you don't have to take these at face value if you don't want to. You can just use them as, again, a little bit of a push, a little bit of a direction. I like to use them as, again, something that helps me come to my own conclusions. So I did the oracle card and I shuffled the decks. I put it in front of me. I have that whole kind of ritual that I usually do. And then I asked the universal question. And the question that I asked, because again, I was able to ask a pretty clear question because I went through that process of like, I understood where it was coming from in my body. I understood kind of what messages I was perceiving this at. And then so I'm able to ask the question. And the question that I ask, again, I write it all down. It's all on a piece of paper. The question that I ask is, how do I overcome this? In, more or less, I use specific words or more specific words, but right now, I'm just kind of giving a little bit of like a blanket question, but you could still, again, have what is going on in your mind. So it's like, how do I overcome this situation? When I pulled a card and it was full moon. And really what full moon represents is that it is at a peak point of like this energy kind of space. And what else? Let me read what else it said. Blah, blah, blah. So it's all about the space in your life kind of reaching this peak energy point where like all your cumulative efforts have kind of got you to this place, and now you need to kind of see what blessings that you actually have, right? Like what type of fullness in your life did all that work and all that effort create for you? And one of the journal prompt questions was, what are, everyday blessings that are in your life right now? So I was like, that's a very interesting question, So then at that point, I was able to journal out a little bit of like, okay, let's write down everything I'm grateful for, all my everyday blessings. And it really kind of got me, again, into a better space where now I'm not at that reactive type of emotion. I'm not in that space where I'm going back and forth, doing circles in my mind. Like, what does this mean? Like, what could this person mean? Or how could this person do this to me? Or blah, blah, blah. And ruminating on these thoughts, on these unnecessary types of things. I'm really able to have that clarity of what is going on inside my own body and how am I going to respond to this in a way that's going to help me. So that practice allowed me to get in that space. The other thing that I did, after I got into that good space, I said, okay, now I'm going to ask another question. And again, I usually don't put this back into the card. I just ask, as I pull it out. So I'll put that to the side, then do another deck spread, and then ask another question. And again, as you get closer and closer to a little bit more clarity, because at each stage, at each section, you're able to understand a lot better. So now the second question I asked was, what is my next step? Show me the path. Right now I want to be in the space of like, okay, I understood what or the reasoning behind my reaction. I understood kind of, what the message and what the protection needed to happen. And now I need to know, how am I going to go forward? How am I going to move forward? I need to know sort of the path. So I asked that question, and the card that I got was Conception. So Conception is a card that really represents kind of a overall creative type of life, right? When we think of what conception is, it's creation of new life. And it talks about a beginning stage as well. Let me look at the other things that I wrote down. So conception, it connects with those that are open and capable of receiving. So that's an important one. That's an important one that I wanted to point out, especially for myself in regards to this specific situation. And so the journal prompt was, what am I most inspired by? So then I was able to journal a little bit of like, okay, what am I inspired by other than this one-off situation, And again, it allowed me to back up, right? Because the whole process was to go inside our bodies, go inside ourselves, figure out what we felt about it. And now I'm at the point where I can get clarity because I'm able to say, okay, I see myself. Now let me see the bigger picture and let me see what is going on with that. And from there, I was able to be very, very clear. I was able to get back off of that kind of reactive sort of space. And I was able to become very, very clear of what my emotions meant or what that emotion meant for me and how do I process forward. So again, it's really the 4 steps where it's like you literally have to sit down. You have to stop what you're doing. You have to sit down, whether it's in a chair, any comfortable position. And then you have to locate and sense. So locate where you're feeling this on your body. Is it in your legs? Is it in your arms? Is it in your chest? Is it in kind of your sinus areas, right? Is it right here? Is it more in like your lower gut region? Do you feel it on your, your sacrum? Are you sitting down on it? Do you feel heavy when you're sitting down? And then sense, like, what does it sort of feel like? Does it feel like a concave feeling? Do I feel like I'm, inward? Do I feel like a low vibration? Do I feel that like higher vibration? Do I feel that buzzing? Because that's going to tell you, it's like, are you underactive? Are you overactive, or are you blocked? Like, is that blocked? Because like that has different types of directions of where or what message it means or that your emotion actually is saying to you. And then again, organ function. So what are the organs associated with where you're feeling that in your body? And what do those, like, what are those messages saying? Again, it's not about physical, actual kind of symptoms. It's not about the nitty gritty of what the organ, specifically does, with like specific hormones or specific kind of things. It's really just more of like an overarching general theme of like, what is the theme of this type of organ? And that allows you to connect back to yourself, back into yourself. And then you're going to ask, the universal questions, journal through those. Again, an oracle card deck here is really, really awesome tool to use. And that gives you a little bit more of a strategy and clarity, or gets you to that point of clarity, because you're not just asking like, well, what do I do? Like, what's going on? Like when you ask kind of these loose, vague questions, you're going to get loose, vague answers, and it's not really going to give you direction. So now you're able to understand, what those themes are, what that message is, what those types of things are telling you, what your emotions are, and then you're literally able to sit with your emotion and you're figuring out what that means for you and process it. And again, as I said before, this is a huge, huge skill to really learn when you're making any type of healing, health change, as well as specifically as, trying to access fat loss and trying to manage your weight. A lot of the times, these emotional things are heavily surrounded and preventing us from moving forward. So again, it's something that really, really changed my life. It's something that I'm really, I have taken a lot of time to get really good at. So I hope that you try out this process, and I hope that it works for you. And let me know in the comments, or like and subscribe for more healthy videos like this.